Okay, cool. Welcome everyone to the Helm Weekly Developer Meeting. Today is July 28th, 2022. Yeah, 2022. Quick reminder, this is a CNCF project space, so please make sure to abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct.
Am I the only one seeing Karen frozen?
No.
Giving it a few seconds.
Frozen and solid.
Yeah, audio and video.
Okay.
Matt or Scott, do you want to help moderate until she's back, or is she back?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So let's see. Where was Karen? Primarily just saying we're getting started, right? Oh, is Karen back now? Maybe.
Karen, are you back? You're muted if you are.
Okay. Well, she can speak up whenever.
Internet dropped. Did it?
I think the connection is bad, Karen. It sounds like it. So for this one, why don't I go ahead and do the or Matt, if you would like to.
You can go ahead. You've already started.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. If Karen comes back and the connection is better, we can just pass the baton again. Are we recording?
Yes.
Yep, we're on.
The icon says we're recording.
Oh, right. Right up above. Thanks. All right, cool. Well, yes, so welcome to the Helm Dev meeting. For folks listening to the recording, it's July 28th, 2022. And Karen is moderating, but the connection was a little disrupted. And so I'm taking over for the meantime until that's back on and better. Okay, we do not have any announcements listed on our agenda right now. Does anyone have any announcements that they didn't put on there? I'll put a link for the recording to the agenda. Okay, it looks like not. Our last announcements were about the releases, and I think those are still relevant. So I mean, I guess we could probably just say see last week's release announcements. Okay. Then the first discussion item is Sophia. Sophia, oh yeah.
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So yeah, I'm Sophie, and yeah, I'm an engineer at Microsoft who works on the Arc for enabled Kubernetes team. So we're actually like leveraging Helm to we're actually leveraging the Helm product, and we're actually exposing some of the error message that Helm gives back. So I should probably, is there a way for me to screen share to look at the issue that I raised?
Yes, I didn't give myself the... Who has host right now? Oh, Andy, can you enable screen sharing? If it's not?
I'll try.
Or sorry, Andy Suderman?
Yeah, I think I got it.
Become the host.
Okay, thanks.
You guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so this is the issue that I opened up. So currently, like, we are exposing the error messages that Helm like code returns. And like, we're trying to improve like the customer experience by giving them like an improved like improved version of like the Helm errors. So right now what that does, because like Helm doesn't like really have error types, like most error messages are just like fmt.print error f. It doesn't like use error types or error codes. So what we have to rely on right now is like parsing like the error string. The problem with that is that like it's making assumptions of like some string, and like the way we parse could break if like the error messages are reworded. So
I have a couple of questions here.
yeah.
My first is, with the error message, are you using Helm as an SDK and looking for error numbers within the SDK or error types? Or are you using Helm at the command line and looking for something in the text or something else?
So let me see. I don't know if I should be this. Yeah, so this is how we're importing like the Helm packages. I think this is the SDK.
Sorry, I only see your browser right now.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think I just shared one screen.
Okay, so you're using the Helm SDK, not the Helm at the CLI, and you're looking for the error objects that are returned to give you some kind of either error type or a number that's available for you on it.
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. But currently Helm doesn't do that in their source code. I know like you guys have some error types, but then they're not really the errors that like we give back to our customers.
I understand. And if you have the error type information and error numbers, you can translate it from our technical sense into something else that you can present to your customers. And right now you're just parsing strings to try to do that. And it's a bit frustrating. Yeah, I think this is one of those things that we would be open for contributions on. I don't see an issue. I think Matt Fisher, Bacon Gobbler there, where he talked about if you wanted to do a larger effort, that would probably be a HIP. But the idea of using different error types and using type checking, and some of those error types we might be able to discuss having numbers and listing out what those codes mean. That's something we're probably open to. This would probably be a HIP to get started if you wanted a large effort. But we'd be open to contributions to making error handling in the SDK better.
Okay, sure. So one thing that's a bit confusing with his reply is that he says that this doesn't work for clients written in other programming languages. So does this mean that like it would break like it will break the clients written in other languages?
Well, hold on.
Mhm.
Let me pull up.
I'm not sure what he means by that either, because the SDK is just for Go.
Oh.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Does that make sense to you, Matt, or should we just ask him?
We use this across. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what he's asking for here.
Okay, yeah, I posted a reply to ask him to like elaborate. That's fine.
You know what I think he's talking about here with the error codes?
Mhm.
What are we talking about with regard to Helm? Because there's the Helm client, there's the Helm SDK, but in the Helm organization, we have other tools. And if we're talking about standard error codes that go across multiple projects within Helm, then
Mhm.
that could be a problem. And I think you're just talking about scoping it to the SDK right now within
Mhm.
Helm, right?
Yeah, for just go away. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this is something. I think if you want to add error codes above error types, that probably needs a HIP to just explain how we would handle that. But
Okay,
if
I
you
think-
have something, yeah.
Yeah, I think like right now, like after talking with my team, we're probably just going to do error types. So I updated the issue a bit to say like error types. Like I'm like as Matt mentioned, some like errors already do use error types, but just not like the
Sure.
ones that we're looking for. So in that case, if we're just doing error types, would we have to still write a hip?
Well, Matt, here's a question. I just want to throw this out here. So we have in the Helm CLI backwards compatibility, in the CLI specifically backwards compatibility, it has a note about changing output.
Yes, and so well, that's why I'm asking where it is, because that's
Yeah.
the Helm CLI.
Right.
So if you look at the Helm CLI, it's in the Helm community repo. What is it? Is it HIP 4? Yeah, that's the backwards compatibility. It says CLI output. It says help text may change. The format and structures of things cannot change. Errors can change if doing so increases their usability. But this is also for CLI output. For SDK output, we have to follow the Go SDK on backwards compatibility with APIs. So if something returned an error before, and now it's going to return a different type, then that has to be, that's an API change, which means we'd need a new API call, even if it wrapped the old one. We have to make the APIs work with Go API compatibility.
Right. So we could mark those function signatures as deprecated, wrap it with a new one that says Y or something. Yeah.
Or we just return it as an error, and then you errors an interface, and then you can introspect that to see what kind of error type it is. That's one of those other things. It's just going to depend on implementation. But yeah, we're open to custom error types that you can introspect and get more detail from.
So it may not be required to make a HIP for that, but it would probably
for the error types. I don't think so. For additional errors
Okay.
and adding a type, I don't think you need a HIP for that.
Okay.
If we're going to start doing numbers on them, as far as a number to identify a certain type of error, that's where I think a HIP would have to come in, because that's just not a standard Go practice. And so we'd have to work out and coordinate the details on it and figure out what we want there. But for just swapping out a generic error to a typed error, as long as the APIs don't change, then I don't see an issue with it.
Okay, sounds good. Cool. Yeah, most likely we'll be going with just the error types. Just out of my curiosity, since this is my first time contributing to Helm, can you if we do end up submitting a HIP, what would the format be?
Oh, if you go to the Helm community repository, there's a HIPs directory.
Yeah.
Everything that you should need is in there. There are existing HIPs. There's a template for writing them. There's a bunch of detail in there.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah, specifically click on the HIPs directory like Matt was saying, and then look at HIP 1, the README, and then HIP 1.
Okay. Yeah. You probably can't see my screen right now, but yeah, I have it open.
Okay.
Yeah, I
hope that helps. I look forward to some pull requests coming in that move us to typed HIPs or to type errors, to typed errors.
Yeah, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Typed HIPs would be a little too meta, I think.
You don't need a HIP just for the typed error messages.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, the next topic is Max and I, but can I think what I'm going to do is bump up this note, because I was putting it below, but I think since you were just talking about HIPs, I just want to note that talked with Matt Fisher about this a little bit too, and I think Farina, this came up with us just a little bit, but I would like to update our HIPs, the statuses of our HIPs, because HIP 1 describes how you have, HIP goes through a status process, and every single HIP except for one of them right now is in draft mode, including the HIP for how to do a HIP. So I think we can, at this point, we've kind of proven it out, so I think we can, I'd like to move those statuses.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Cool. And then, okay, great. That can be short, a short one. So Max, do you want me to introduce the do you want to go ahead and just introduce what we were talking about, or do you want me to introduce it and you can jump in about the topic for OCI?
Sure, I can go ahead. Okay, I was working on Flux support for insecure OCI registries, like pulling charts from insecure OCI registries, and we're trying to use the Helm SDK as much as possible there. However, currently there is no publicly accessible way to tell the client to use a plain HTTP. So I looked at the Helm repository and saw that there are 3 competing PRs to fix that, including one from myself. And yeah, it looks like none of them are making much progress. So maybe, I don't know, the community, the maintainers just need to settle on one possible direction so we can move forward with this. So from a Flux perspective, everything that we need is in the PR that I put up, which is, I guess, the smallest one of those 3 that are linked here. But I'm fine with anything that helps us move forward.
I was wondering, Matt, if anyone else on the call who's interested in the SDK side of it, if we could just look at these 3 PRs for a second, just sort of talk it out, give some feedback.
Sure. I don't know if I'm prepared to do that today, just because I haven't actually looked through them. I know one of them is 16 files are changed, so it's a rather large one.
Right.
I mean, maybe we can start from the smallest one, which I guess is the 11 one, 11 something. If we want to, otherwise we can defer.
The question, Max, is like,
yeah.
Is there anything significant in some of those larger PRs that are not covered in this alternative approach that's a smaller footprint?
Quick glance, it looks like one of them implements the changes in the CLI as well as the SDK, and one of them's just in the SDK. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and one of them is like adding functionality to inject, what was that? I think a registry client or config or something like that. And mine is just adding an option to say like, hey, use plain HTTP. Right. So, and yeah, I guess that's kind of the staircase of things. Like one is very small, just adds an option. The other one adds this injectable thing, and the third one also changes the CLI, which I guess might be the best thing to do in the long run.
At least 9564 is inclusive of your changes, but adds insecure, skip, verify, and then being able to specify your own TLS, CA, and key insert, and then adds that all to the CLI as well.
So 9564 is the more complete of them.
I think so, yeah.
But is it an alternative approach where it's lacking something that basically kind of like, if that's the case, then why did you write this, Max? Putting you on the hot seat right now. I'm sure there's a reason though. Yeah.
The reason I came up with my own is that it's the least, how do you say, like it changes the smallest possible thing, right? It's because I saw these other PRs that seem to be causing discussion and everything, and I thought maybe if we added just this simple, very simple, small thing, it's easier to get that merged, and then after that, maybe reiterate on the other ones, rebase them on top of that, and maybe even, I don't know, change what has been merged first. But yeah, my main focus was to move this forward without having to discuss too much, right? Or changing too much. I'm very happy with just closing mine and merging the others. Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
not
so 9564,
emotionally.
the reason that it's taking so long is, I mean, it hit a point where it needed to be rebased back in November, and the author never rebased. They just left it after a discussion. It needed rebasing, and that was it. So I think we'll probably have to end up somebody else taking this over and the commits over, or rewriting it separately.
Yeah, what if, just for example, what if someone like Max, just not saying this should be your responsibility, but like who wanted to move this forward, took that other person's pull request branch where that just stopped, you know, that like Matt Farina was saying, and you keep their commits as they are, and then you just make your changes on top of that. If you find that, oh, well, they changed things that weren't necessary in order to achieve this, you could simplify it there in additional commits. Does that sound right to you, Matt? Or
Yeah, and I'm okay if this is done in multiple pull requests, right? We don't have to do everything in a single pull request. So doing one pull request that I think there's insecure, there is custom certs, and there's the difference between the SDK and the Helm client. Trying to do all that in one big pull request is a lot. But if we broke that up into smaller pull requests, that would be fine as well too. I would just like to see it all go in. And it would be nice if it had tests as well. And I haven't looked at the code to see how hard that would be. But that would be my, and if we have folks interested in doing this in smaller chunks that are easier to review, that's fine as well. It would be nice. Is there an issue? Oh, there's an issue for this, right?
yeah, there are several of them.
Yes. How can I push jar to an insecure OCI registry is the issue. 6324. Yeah, so since you were asking, I'd be happy to maybe just help move this specific PR forward by I guess I'll have to create another one because I don't own the fork, I guess.
Well, what's
And
missing
cherry
from
pick
this
the changes
ultimately then? Is it the CLI implementation? You know, so for example, Matt, when you were saying you suggested, you know, smaller PRs would actually make sense if they did one thing at a time. Would you be cool with an SDK first approach where the SDK solves something, but then the CLI implementation of it comes later? Is it kind of best to, when there's a CLI component to it, best to kind of do those both in one PR?
It would be nice to have them both in one PR. Here it is pushed to an insecure OCI registry. So something that allows you to push to an insecure OCI registry, but doesn't deal with the certificates, that's fine. Although this does say HTTP or HTTPS with self-signed. Okay. Yeah. That's how they want. But yeah, my fear of breaking it up into too little would be somebody writes something for the SDK and then never finishes it off by taking it all the way to the CLI, and it works for the SDK, but it doesn't work in a manner that makes it easy for us to expose it to the client. And then you have to make an API breaking change or something like that and deal with those problems in order to expose it to the client, which is the #1 user. So for this, it would be nice to have it handle insecure, and have it in the client and have tests. And if somebody does that, I'd be happy to review it.
Same, and the only tiny request I would make is if code is drawn from an earlier pull request on someone else's branch, then if it were possible for you to cherry pick in their commit so that it kind of shows that they helped on this, that would be really cool. We do our best to help, give attribution to people's work. Okay, then in that case, I'm actually pretty, okay, I see 100% emojis, so I think seem okay with that topic.
Yeah, sounds good to me. Thanks for discussing this.
Yeah, and we only have 2 minutes left, so we have 2 more topics left, so...
you can skip mine. I can do mine another time.
Okay. And then...
I can be super fast with mine.
Yep.
I was here a couple of weeks ago. There's a HIP out there to add the repository URL. We discussed it, I think, at length in the last discussion we had, which I think was 2 weeks ago, but I cannot keep track of time these days. So I just wanted to know what we can do to help move that along. I believe it definitely needs a rebase. I can talk to Luke about getting that done. But other than that, is there anything else, any other way we can push this along? I think you pinged Matt Butcher, someone did in the HIP, but I don't know what we need to do to get it merged, or more questions addressed if necessary.
Well, let's see. We have probably 30 seconds. So I think the main thing is maybe the big goal of you mentioning it here is just to put this kind of be hey, can you all check this out?
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. That's all. So I know how easy it is to forget stuff and how busy we all are. So I just wanted to keep showing up. So plus it gives me an excuse to come to the meeting, which I actually enjoy doing. So
yeah, exactly. And I know last week we were talking about potentially even joining to review other PRs and stuff like that. And so that's something we can continue to do as well. Okay. There are some open comments. So maybe that would just be good to make sure it's rebased, make sure those comments are addressed. And if something needs to be added based on the comments, like there was a flag comment, then that it's taken care of too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fairly certain Luke addressed all the comments, but I'll double check.
Okay.
And then I'll ask him to rebase. So.
Okay, I could be wrong about that then. Cool. Okay, so assignments for next call. Who wants, let's see, Karen self-assigned for notes. Yay, who wants to do moderation next week? I think Matt Farina says he won't be in attendance next week, so I'll just volunteer to do it. But if someone wants to do it, you can take over. So issue triage and PR review. Thanks, Matt. Issue triage and PR review. I can do again PR review, and I can also shadow folks who want to help with issue triage. But I'm going to be pretty packed next week, so I may not really be able to do a whole lot of it except for the shadowing session. So I'll just write that I volunteer to shadow, and hey, Andy, if you happen to be free to look at the PR review stuff with me, since we have discussed it, no pressure. But if you do, let's find a time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm out most of next week, so it's probably not a good week for that. But
yeah. Okay.
I will. Maybe I'll hit you up in the Kubernetes Slack.
Okay, yeah. So maybe we can just say the following one. Okay, great. Well, we're 1 minute over. That's not too horrible. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you on Slack and next meeting. Bye.